I always seem to cry at this episode, and this time was no exception. I actually counted it for once, and I cried on 6 separate occasions in this episode. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin, I am a geek. You are watching Kevin the Geek, and you will have noticed two things with my Torchwood reviews as of late. First of all, today obviously I am foregoing my usual facial hair, and that's because it ties into the other thing. So last week I unfortunately wasn't able to get this video out as planned because I am basically I'm doing a production of local theatre. I'm doing a performance of Grease, which means that with obviously me being in my early 30s, I have to do whatever I can to make myself look young, and that unfortunately meant I had to shave off. So it may be quite weird for you looking at me, with really long hair and obviously no beard or anything at the moment. It's weird for me looking at the camera, obviously, whilst doing this. But of course, I try and do videos 7 days a week, and just unfortunately, despite my many efforts, I ran out of time through doing rehearsals and work and trying to do videos. So unfortunately, I had to delay my Doctor Who and my Torchwood videos. So apologies for that. So, to give you an idea of the schedule over the next 2 weeks, because there's going to be quite a few videos for Doctor Who and for Torchwood. So today, which is Tuesday the 22nd, I believe it is from memory, obviously I'm not recording this on that day, I'm actually recording this on opening night, so the Thursday before this video goes out. But yeah, the Tuesday, today this video goes out. This is my review of Adrift from Torchwood. Tomorrow, on Wednesday, it is going to be my Doctor Who review of the episode Turn Left. Then the day after, on the Thursday, will be the episode that some people consider part of the Series 2 finale of Torchwood. Some people consider it a separate episode. Because I wanted to finish the Season 2 reviews before getting into the Series 4 finale of Torchwood, I needed to try and fit it in. So there's going to be an additional Torchwood review this week, which is going to be the one of Fragments. And then next week, on the Tuesday, will be my review of Exit Wounds, the Series 2 proper finale of Torchwood. And then the day after that, it is going to be the Series 4 finale of Doctor Who, my review of The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. So, I've got a lot to get through. So, let's crack on with this review for Torchwood and Adrift. Now, I mentioned it at the start, I cry a lot at this episode. It is a truly emotional episode. And I never really go kind of hard in and kind of analyze things like the title of an episode, but the one single word of this title, Adrift, I actually think that is a very clever title for this episode because it has a number of different connotations. Of course, you have Jonah, who is the main focus of this episode. Well, he's the kind of the crux of this episode. Jonah is the boy who gets basically taken by the rift, gets dumped back in about 30 or 40 years later, although in Cardiff times it's only 7 months later. So Jonah is physically adrift from time and space in this episode. His mother, Nikki Bevan, she is kind of adrift as well because she's in this kind of no man's land, because she doesn't know whether Jonah is alive or is dead, and she's kind of clinging on to this hope that someday he's going to be found, whether alive, whether dead. But she's just in limbo. She's adrift from being able to kind of move on with her life. And then, of course, you have Gwen. Gwen is very adrift in this episode because it's done very cleverly, I think, in this one. And this is one of those times that Chris Chibnall's time as showrunner for Doctor Who makes me so goddamn frustrated, because he did a number of episodes in Torchwood, and specifically this one. And I have said for a long time that I feel arguably of the kind of single episode era of Torchwood, from seasons 1 and 2, this is arguably the greatest story that Torchwood has done, in my opinion. I mean, overall, I would have to say, as a story, Children of Earth is probably going to take that one, which of course I'll review later this year. But yeah, Adrift, as a single episode kind of story, it gets everything right from the opening minute. The kind of setup for this, although we never really see young Jonah again in this episode, you get enough of the sense of the relationship between him and his mum through these little text conversations in a nanosecond. And it's wonderful to see their kind of relationship there, which I think makes it even more heartbreaking when you get later in the episode and you meet Nikki properly, as Gwen does. And I have to say, Ruth Jones, for me, the only two things I can really ever remember that I have seen her in. One, she was Mifanwy, the barmaid in Little Britain, which I enjoyed it as a kind of adolescent, juvenile kid. But as an adult, I think Little Britain is very cringy. And that's putting it mildly. But of course, the main thing that I know her from is Gavin and Stacey. And, if you had told me, and I had never seen the two shows, and you kind of tried to describe the two characters, I couldn't put them down as being the same person who performs both of them. And even watching it, I'm thinking, that's not Nessa. That's not Nessa from Gavin and Stacey. That surely this isn't Ruth Jones. And maybe admittedly, like, I watched this episode way before I watched Gavin and Stacey. I mean, I only watched Gavin and Stacey for the first time about maybe 3-4 years ago. In a way, I kind of wish I'd been able to react to it on the channel. That would have been fantastic. But by the by, Ruth Jones in this role as Nikki Bevan, as this woman who is clinging to this hope that she's going to find her little boy, who is only 15. That is really, really tough to watch. Then you see her kind of getting to that point, almost at the point of acceptance, that she's never going to see him again. And so she sets up this group, to try and help other people come to terms with the loss and the likelihood that they're probably never going to see their missing loved ones again. And then that heartbreaking scene where Gwen takes Nikki to see her son.
Jonah?
Mum?
No. No!
It's okay, Mum. It's me. It's okay.
Stay away!
I'm sorry.
It's just... For me, I think it has an extra impact in a way. Not that I've been in a situation where I have had someone who's disappeared. I've never had that. But my cousin sadly passed away at a very young age. He was, I think he was 14 at the time. I was really young. I was about 10 or 11, I think it was. Actually, yeah, I think I was 11, maybe 12 actually. But yeah, we sadly lost him to an unfortunate traffic collision, and I remember at the time that I'd been to a couple of funerals, like my great grandmother and my granddad and my great uncle, in and around that. Actually, no, my great uncle was later. But I'd been to a few funerals, and although I didn't really know them, I went to them and there was like an open casket and everything like that. And I remember when my cousin passed away, I wanted that kind of chance to say my final goodbyes. And basically, that was refused. No one, I think, other than my uncle and his ex-wife, my cousin's mother, I think they were the only ones who saw him, obviously afterwards. And I'm so grateful for that now because I can think back to my time growing up with Gary. And admittedly, we didn't have a lot of time together because I kind of met him quite late on. But I can think back to those times that we would go and play football together, or we'd go and watch the football together, and just have fun days out. For my uncle, it is a lot harder for him to be able to remember him as he was, because the image of him after having been in a terrible accident, that of course will stay with him. And the reason obviously I bring this up is because it asks the moral question of this episode. Should Gwen really have brought Nikki to see Jonah in the state that he was? She remembers him as this young 15-year-old boy, curly hair. He's got his whole life ahead of him. And it's an understandable reaction that she does not believe that the man that is now standing in front of her is Jonah. Despite what Gwen has told her, despite saying that he is aged, he is scarred, she cannot fathom that this is her boy. And that whole sequence, kind of from the moment that Gwen tells Nikki that she's found Jonah. Actually, no, even a couple of minutes before that, when we first see Jonah, I start crying at that point. You know, learning who he is. Then Gwen tells Nikki that she's found Jonah. I get a fresh set of tears at that point. Then Nikki is on the boat going to see it. I got a fresh set of tears there. Then obviously she walks in, she sees him, and I get these kind of anguished tears. Thinking, this is so painful to watch, and I can only imagine how terrible it must be to not be able to believe that this is your son standing in front of her. Then another set of tears when she actually has this realization that it is actually Jonah. All this stuff. And then to knock it to another level when obviously Jonah goes into this downswing thing and you have this kind of screeching, horrible pain. There's another set of tears. And then finally, yet another set of tears from me when Nikki basically says to Gwen, "Don't ever put anyone else through this. You shouldn't have told me this." It's all well and good in hindsight to be able to say, "I want to know." You know, like I would have loved to have said my final goodbyes to my cousin, but my uncle did the right thing in preventing me, my brother, my sister, my mum from seeing him because he didn't want to tarnish those memories that we had of Gary. And this is the thing in this. And it surprises me that they didn't make a show of offering the retcon. I mean, maybe they did off screen, and maybe Nikki refused it. I mean, it is that situation. Like, would you rather have known Jonah at least was alive, yet maybe not see him? Would you have gone to see him? Would you have rather just wished that you never got told and you kind of have this unknowing scenario, which would have been for the rest of your life? Because there's no way that you would have known. There's no way that Jack would have allowed it to happen. It's only through the persistence of Gwen that it was allowed to happen. Yeah, what would you have done? Or what would you have rather have felt or had done in that situation? Let me know in the comments below, because it raises a very moral question. And for me personally, if I was a father in that situation and I had a missing child, if I learnt the situation and then looking back, I would probably say I would rather have been told that he is alive, but for your sake, you do not get to see him. Actually, I don't know, because I don't know, in that situation, I would just be thinking, no, I've got to see my son. I would have been like Nikki, I think. It's a really difficult situation to be in. And obviously, Gwen, she is so persistent in this episode. But like I said right at the start, Gwen is adrift in this episode as well. And I think that it's a situation that it was handled very well in the writing by Chris Chibnall, and it was performed exceptionally well. Because you've got Gwen and Reese and Andy, who basically called Gwen out on her behaviour.
You know, sometimes I fucking hate you. I mean, look at you. Caught up in your little group, like nothing else matters. Like being a hero is an end in itself, when it's not. You save the city, well done. You save the world, whatever. What for? Sorry? I mean, why are you doing it? What are you trying to protect? What are you fighting for? Shut up, I'm talking now, right? You do it so people can live their lives. And there's nothing more important than that. Fall in love, getting married, buying flats, having kids or not. But real life, that's what you're protecting. And if you're starting to think that your shit is more important than real life, then we're not going to last very long here, love.
You've got Andy, who's basically saying, you're not who you were anymore. You used to care about people. And Torchwood has basically made you tough. And that has been a kind of a subtle change that I think, until it gets pointed out, as viewers, we've maybe not necessarily noticed, because there still has been sprinklings of early Gwen here and there throughout these episodes. Like, I think back to the Out of Time episode with, Diane and the other girl and the guy, the ones from the 50s, because she was very, very caring towards this young girl. But then you have, like in series 2, the second episode, Sleeper, she was very considerate towards Beth in that episode. But then you think about some of the other times, she's been very harsh and cold at times. And, Andy is very right to call her out, because they were partners, working partners for a number of years. So he would have seen those changes. And Reese, I love that scene where he basically told her to shut up, and to actually have his point. I think it was so needed, because they've done a great job in this series of building up that relationship between Gwen and Reese again. But it just shows that it's not without fault. They haven't been able to correct those errors overnight. They're still going to have to work at their relationship. And I think what was great is that Reese recognised that he was slightly in the wrong there as well, because he needs to be able to let Gwen open up a little bit at times. When he said to her in that initial kind of conversation in the park where he says, when you're at work, you leave your stuff at work. When you come home, we deal with us. And he is right, yet there are sometimes things that you can't switch off from. You will come home from work and you will bring some kind of baggage home with you. It's impossible to ever switch off entirely. There will always be something. So yeah, this is an episode overall that I just think does everything so well. I mean, even the music, it has probably my favourite singular piece of music from Torchwood. The song, which in the kind of official soundtrack is called Flat Home Island. And it's the one that plays when Gwen is going on that boat on that initial journey. There's just something about it that I don't know quite what it is. It's beautiful and haunting and melancholy and all these different emotions all getting crammed together all at once. So yeah, that is without a shadow of a doubt one of my favourite episodes of this show, if not my favourite episode of this show. What did you think of Adrift? Whatever your thoughts are, drop your comments down below. Remember, we've got Doctor Who review coming up tomorrow, which is for Turn Left. We then have the review of Torchwood Fragments on Thursday. Next Tuesday will be the review of Exit Wounds, which is the Series 2 finale. And then we will have the day later, on the Wednesday, the review of the Series 4 finale, The Stolen Earth and Journey's End. This is going to be an emotional couple of days, watching these episodes back and reviewing them. I know I'm going to cry a lot, because I cry a lot of these episodes. So, thank you very much for joining me. Once again, remember to subscribe to the channel if you are new. But for today, my name is Kevin. I am a geek, and you've been watching Kevin the Geek. Goodbye.